welcome to the My Slice of Life podcast. My name is Sharon, and if you're like me, you know the feeling of procrastination all too well. All those wonderful ways we come up with to put off what we know we should be doing, but for some reason we just don't. Well, today, friends, we're going to deep dive into understanding procrastination and explore practical ways to overcome it, because you can. So whether you're putting off that big project, avoiding some household jobs, or just generally feeling stuck, this episode is for you. But just before we crack on, I wanted to let you know that if you have a topic idea or an episode suggestion for the podcast, feel free to let me know. Either leave a comment here or head to the blog and use the contact page and let me know if you want me to use your name so I can give you full credit. I cover a wide range of topics here, so if you think we'll all find it interesting, let me know what it is and I'll do my best to fit it in. And now, let's get into procrastination. And I want to begin by working out exactly what we mean when we say procrastination. It isn't, as I used to think, being lazy. And I'll come back to that in just a wee minute, because I think we're often very hard on ourselves and can easily feel guilty and lazy when we procrastinate. The procrastination at its most basic is delaying or postponing something that needs to be done. It's that feeling of, I'll get to it later, but somehow later never comes. Sound familiar? Yeah, me too. I'm going to put my cards on the table right here, because in this season so far I've covered what productivity means for us, motivation and time management, and I have struggles with all of them. I think we all do. But my biggest issue is procrastination. I really think it is. So I want to have a look at why we do it. Why do I do it? I've always done it. When I was at college and had assignments to do, I would do anything else other than the assignment. I was always doing them the night before they had to be handed in. Even the project, right, that we were supposed to be doing continuously over the entire year. I think I crammed that in at the last 3 days. I created my own problems. But why? Well, believe it or not, there's been a lot of research done on this over the years, and the results give us reasons like fear of failure. We worry we won't get it right or be able to do it well enough, so we just don't start at all. The opposite of this is the fear of success, which might come as a bit of a surprise, but some people do procrastinate due to the fear of success, because success comes with higher expectations, added responsibilities, or, just other challenges, and all that can feel really intimidating. Then there's the perfectionist. That feeling of, if it won't be done perfectly, it just won't be done. That sort of all or nothing thinking. Sometimes we just feel overwhelmed. We've got too much to do already, and another thing on the list just gets pushed further and further down the line until we feel ready to do it. Problem is, we never feel ready, do we? We're never ready. We wait for that time to think, I'll do that when I feel X, Y, Z. It just doesn't happen. I mean, how many times have you thought to yourself, you're going to wait until you feel motivated to do a task, or feel more inspired even, and you use that as a reason not to start? It could be you're feeling low in confidence in your abilities, and that's preventing you from starting a task. These are all pretty common reasons, and you might be aware of some of your own triggers that have you procrastinating. Mine are phone calls. If I have to make phone calls, I put it off for ages, much longer than I should, because I hate using the phone. Always have. So if I've got to make calls, unless it's an emergency, I'll pile them up, and then, one day when I'm feeling really brave, I'll just do the lot. And I know I talked before, I think it was last week, about batching tasks. When I do batch these phone calls, I'm not actually doing that on purpose. It's just the way it works out. I get to the point where I know they really need to be done, and I just can't put them off any longer. And it's that pressure of a deadline which actually makes me do them. Now, I've just given you a list of reasons for why we procrastinate, but really, they can all be summed up in one word: stress. You see, it isn't laziness that makes us procrastinate, it's stress. And to put it at its most basic, when you procrastinate, you're trying to avoid stress. And studies have found procrastination to be much more than we thought. It's a complex psychological behaviour, often tied to our emotions, and when we put off tasks, We feel temporary relief. We have a sense of a weight off of our shoulders. It's a short-term relief, but our brains are designed to avoid discomfort at all costs. So we'll take that temporary relief, even though it builds up stress and even guilt in the background. But we look for that instant gratification, don't we? That's what we want. So when we're faced with a task that might be uncomfortable or challenging, we gravitate towards activities that give us that immediate pleasure or relief. What would you rather do? Have a coffee and a cake, or get that report done? That's stress right there, and you're avoiding it. You're avoiding the discomfort of having to do the work. We tend to prioritise short-term rewards, don't we, over the long-term benefits. And this is why when you're given the choice between tackling a difficult task or checking the phone, you're going to pick checking the phone. It's how we work. It gives us that immediate dopamine hit, and that's what we want. And we might not realise it at the time, but procrastination, it often does lead to guilt, anxiety, and more stress. You feel that pressure building up as the deadline looms, or the shame that your house is still in a mess. But here's something you really need to know, and I've only recently, to be honest, found out. Procrastination is a habit. We avoid something which makes us uncomfortable, probably for one of the reasons I've just mentioned. We'll look for instant relief, but we end up feeling guilty, which leads to more stress, and so the cycle just continues. I recently came across a Mel Robbins video on YouTube, and I am late to the Mel Robbins party. I confess, I've got a lot of catching up to do. But she was talking about this. She said something that I liked. She said, "You're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. So what can we do? How can we make changes to help us overcome a procrastination problem?" And I'm talking about now, not tomorrow or next week. But the good news is we can actually do quite a lot. The first thing we're going to do is stop attacking or labelling ourselves because we've ever procrastinated. That's not at all helpful. We don't need that. But what is helpful is realising you're procrastinating in the first place. This is the time to be kind to yourself. I know I can tell you're doubting me, but this is the time to be kind because your mind is telling you there's a problem. This is when you need to take a step back. So when you put something off, stop. Just take a second and realise you're doing it. You see, normally it's done so unconsciously, we don't give it any thought, we just accept that instant gratification I was talking about earlier. So by realising you're doing it and bringing it into the conscious mind, we're already making a move to break the habit and break that cycle. This also puts you in a good place to ask yourself, what's really holding me back? And be honest. Is it fear? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you out of your depth? Or maybe you have a complete lack of direction and don't really know what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. But acknowledge you are stressed out about something. Realise that procrastination is your stress signal. That can actually be a pretty useful tool. It's a reminder that we need to kind of check in on ourselves. I'm stressed. What are you stressed about? The next thing you can do relates to something I talked about last week. In fact, the techniques I went over last week about how to become a time management ninja can really help you here. And what you're going to do next is take action. Do anything that makes you start a task. And I've been using one of the techniques that I mentioned last week. I've been using it in my own life this week. I thought, I'm going to really try this, really see if they work. I know they work, but I wanted to pick one. And I picked the 2-minute rule. If a job takes 2 minutes or less, just do it. Just do it. This breaks down that barrier that stops you from even starting. The physical act of starting, even just a little, it kickstarts the motivation and you'll want to keep going. Maybe what you do is prepare everything you'll need to get a job done the next morning. Maybe you'll get the list of phone numbers, a pen, and a notepad on your desk. So in the morning, it's all there waiting for you to make all those calls that you've been putting off. Another option for you here is one I've actually mentioned before, but often when we're making changes, we need to hear the same message a few times to really take it in. So if you have a large or an intimidating task to do, break it down into those teeny tiny steps I did talk about this last week, but often we procrastinate because a task just feels too big or too unmanageable. So how do we deal with it? Break it down. So you can't clean the whole house. What can you do? Wash the dishes? Put the clothes away? Put the rubbish out? Could you pick things off the floor? You get the idea. Small jobs, which they're all part of the bigger picture. They all need done. But instead of thinking, I need to clean the whole house, you've picked one thing. And again, if it can be done in 2 minutes or less, just do it. You know you're procrastinating. You've realised you're procrastinating, so you know now. That's your signal. I'm stressed. What's stressing you? There's too much mess. I'm overwhelmed. I'm expected to do all this myself. It's too much for me. Okay, take a breather. What can you do in 2 minutes or less? If 2 minutes isn't enough for you and you think, don't like that, okay, 5 minutes, whatever. I prefer 2 minutes. I can pick things off the floor in 2 minutes. I can at least get the dishes in the sink and get the tap running and, bubble it all up. Like that can be done in 2 minutes. While that's doing that, I can load the washing machine in 2 minutes. All these little things add up to a bigger picture. And don't forget to celebrate those small victories. They mean something, so celebrate them. Even if it's as simple as taking a short break, or, go for a walk around the garden, treating yourself to something you enjoy, get that nice fancy coffee. That reward, it helps you maintain your motivation. Okay, so at this point, I want to take a pause. We've looked at what really makes us procrastinate. Okay, we know it's a habit. We know it happens when we're stressed. And we've gone over a few of the methods that we can use now to overcome it. But the biggest message I want you to take away from this episode is this. Be kind to yourself. Sounds simple, doesn't it? You really need to remember procrastination is something we all do, and there are reasons behind it. So don't beat yourself up over it. You need to stop criticising yourself or labelling yourself as lazy. You're not lazy or hopeless or any of the other labels you've mentally shouted at yourself. How do I know? Because I've done it too. You procrastinate, you're stressed. What you need is someone to be kind, and that begins with you. A little bit of compassion can go a long way, can't it? And if you are procrastinating, apart from following the steps I've given you, the pause, realise you're stressed, ask yourself what's causing that stress, then take action with the 2-minute rule or whatever works for you, to get you started. You need to remind yourself that it's okay that you've procrastinated and focus on getting back on track without dwelling on it. The day doesn't stop because you suddenly realise, oh no, I'm procrastinating, and then you let that overwhelm you. No, it's fine, it's done. You just keep going. And there is something else to bear in mind here. If you are procrastinating, we know now that means stress. If that is stress down to fear of not doing a good job, that's one thing. But if your stress is a long-term thing, you need to work on that. I actually did a couple of episodes about how to deal with stress way back in the first season of the podcast. It was episodes 6 and 7 to be exact, and I would urge you to go and listen to them. Now, please bear in mind, I had just started podcasting, so be kind. Be kind. I did my best, but the information is still good and relevant. So if long-term stress is an issue for you, that might be an easy way for you to take a first step in dealing with it. Many people swear by mindfulness and meditation too. Not my areas of expertise. I've tried both. I do try to be present in the moment and I try to be mindful when I'm eating, but I'm not what I would class as a good role model with them. But it is another option open to you, so I wanted to mention them here as well. So now it's your turn. I see, you don't get away with just listening. As soon as this podcast finishes, I want you to take 5 minutes to work on something you've been putting off. No matter how big or how small, make a start and build that momentum. The hardest part is getting going, but once you do, I'm telling you, you're going to feel that fire and you'll want to keep going. I've got faith in you. You just need to have faith in yourself. And let me know how you did. Tell me about the progress you made. Let me know what you managed to do in 5 minutes, and how that carried on for you through the day. I'd love to hear how you guys get on with this. And if you found this episode helpful, which I genuinely hope you have, as well as leaving your comments, please give it a like and follow the podcast, because I do cover a wide variety of topics. Next week, however, we are still finding ways to help us all get productive. We're still in the productive season, and I want to introduce you to someone. You won't want to miss it. So until then, you take care of your wee self.